Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the SciPy plenary sessions on behalf of myself, Tom Caswell, and my co-chair, Hannah Eisenman. So this track is a chance for projects, some core, some new, to present lightning-style talks about their updates on their status and near-term plans. Due to the format, we're not going to have time for question and answer during the session. However, the maintainers and contributors of these projects are at the conference, and so if you run into them in the hallway track in GatherTown, or the Tools Plenary Slack channel, please do not hesitate to ask them any of your questions. In addition, NumFocus will be hosting open hours at their booth with the maintainers of their sponsored projects. So please check that out and visit the booth for the schedule. And without further ado, I'd like to invite up Gregory Lee to tell us about scikit image.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, hopefully everybody can see. I'm Greg Lee. I'll be presenting our annual update from scikit image. Some recent highlights from our 0.18.
We don't see it.
Oh, sorry. Let me get it back over. Oh, it's still loading there. Sorry. There we go. Okay, should be there now. Okay, apologies. So some recent highlights. We recently released 0.18 last December. This extended our 3D support, made some improvements to the region property measurements, where they now support multi-channel and can have user-defined properties. We have some new features related to our algorithms for background subtraction, optical flow, etc. And we also have some new sample images. One feature that we added about 1.5 years ago is hosting all these sample images in a different repository than the main code, and these get fetched on demand, so the package size doesn't get inflated when we add additional images, and that's enabled through a package called Pooch. And recently, with our most recent point release, we started providing wheels on ARM. So for the upcoming 0.19 release, we've got improved single precision support. Users can configure which axis of the data corresponds to channel in the case of like color or multi-channel images. We have ND support in our geometric transforms, quite a few performance improvements across the library, improving places we release the GIL so we can use Dask and things like that. And a number of new functions, as well as new gallery demos, some 3D microscopy examples that use interactive plotly plots where you can scroll through the different planes of the 3D volume in our online gallery. Another recent focus has been improving contributor and maintainer experience. We've had work from colleagues at Quantsite on streamlining the release process. This is like automated wheel building and upload on pushing a tag to the repo. We've got some benchmarking up via GitHub Actions. And we have documentation builds that are visible from PRs. And I want to acknowledge funding from CZI that's enabled a lot of that work. And one thing we've got planned towards the end of the year is a 1.0 release where we're refining the API a bit with some parameter names more uniform across sub-packages. We want to have overall less magic and surprises, like not automatically rescaling the range of inputs or trying to guess if images are color. And we're going to be removing the viewer sub-package because this has not really been updated a lot in recent years, and there's good third-party alternatives like Napari. And so we have more details on that. Juan just wrote this skip or enhancement proposal this morning, so please follow that link, give us feedback on how we can make this process as minimally disruptive as possible, and we plan to provide a migration guide well in advance of that release. The final thing to mention is we have plans in the remainder of the year to look more at integrating different computational backends, so you can use the scikit image API, but with computation on GPUs or Dask or other implementations on the backend. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. And next up is Thomas Fan to tell us about the state of scikit-learn.
All right. All right. Hi, I'm Thomas. I'm a core dev for scikit-learn. I'd like to present to you scikit-learn. I'm an update of scikit-learn. Scikit-learn is an open source machine learning library for Python. As a community update, we have a new core dev, Christian. He was critical in pushing to support for generalized linear models into the library. We have 3 new triage members, one of which is hired at Ria to work on scikit-learn. We have held 3 sprints this year: Africa and the Middle East with Data Umbrella, Japan with then revalidation, and Latin America with Data Umbrella. These sprints introduces open source contribution to folks from different regions of the world. I would like to thank Rishima and Norbert and all the volunteers for putting these sprints together. We also have, the revalidation also created a MOOC, where this course is to teach machine learning with scikit-learn to beginners, even without a strong technical background. I would like, for the latest release of scikit-learn 0.24, I also like to thank everyone that was contributed and made this release possible. Some highlights from this build release was successive halving, which is having random search, a faster searching algorithm for hyperparameter tuning. We also have categorical feature support for histogram grading boosting. Also, we have a self-training meta estimator, which turns any supervised classifier into a semi-supervised one. A sequential feature selector, which is a greedy procedure for finding the best features. We have a polynomial count sketch, which approximates a polynomial expansion. There's a lot. I recommend everyone to look at the changelog to get all the things are in the release. For future plans, we are going to be more consistent with naming loss functions. We're not going to use, we're consolidating all our names. So instead of using MSE, LS, etc., we're going to use square error. Same thing for absolute error. One big push is for metadata routing, which is an enhancement proposal 6, which gives users a way to pass metadata around that was not possible in the past. Also, one big push recently is to support feature names, and it involves column name consistency, getting feature names from every transformer, and in the future, hopefully, get pandas data frame output from scikit-learn transformers. And lastly, scikit-learn 1.0 is going to be the next release, so stay tuned for that.
Thank you, Thomas. Up next is Nicholas Critchin to tell us about Plotly and Dash.
Can you see my screen? Excellent, thank you. I'm here to give you the Plotly and Dash update. My name is Nick Christian. I lead the data visualization team at Plotly. Plotly is a general purpose data visualization library, and Dash is an analytical web application framework. In the past 12 months, we've had 8 different releases of Plotly, including 5.0, which was our latest major release. It's based on Plotly.js 2.0. So this was a breaking change. We dropped support for Python 2 and anything below 3.6, actually, and represents about 6 months of technical debt pay down in Plotly.js, which hopefully will enable us to move forward faster in the future. In the past year, we introduced the Kaleido library for static image export. This is a headless browser, which is easier to install than our previous static image export system, and is actually not Plotly specific. So we're hoping that it will be adopted across the ecosystem for any JavaScript-based visualization systems for doing static image export. So that's SVG, PNG, EPS, PDF, and so on. 5.0 also includes a federated Jupyter Lab extension, so you no longer need Node to install it. Thank you very much to Frederick Cullenval for that contribution. In terms of new visual things, which is the sort of bread and butter of what Plotly does, we have hex bin maps. You can see on my screen here, pattern fails, icicle charts, all of which were community contributions. We also have a dedicated API for timelines. We had major improvements to our time series and date axes improvements, which were funded by an anonymous sponsor. We have an improved API for horizontal and vertical line and rectangles. And we have much more support for faceting and animations throughout Plotly Express. Switching over to the Dash world, in the past 12 months, we have a new interactive inline developer tool. So you can see here in the top right, you can essentially introspect how your app is working while it's running. This was largely a community contribution, so we thank the contributor. We have integration with HoloViews and VTK via Dash HoloViews and Dash VTK. You can see some examples of what that can look like on the side there. You can also slice through volumetric data with the Dash slicer. In the latest release, or one back, we introduced circular callbacks in certain limited cases. In the past year, we added Julia support, building on last year's R support. And we've introduced Dash Labs, which is where we're developing the next generation of Dash core features out in the open. So if anyone wants to contribute and look at our roadmap, please check out the Dash Labs features, and you can try them out right now without breaking your existing Dash apps. In terms of community and funding, we're very proud to have over 6 million combined monthly downloads. The community is thriving. The community forum at community.plotly.com is very active with over 200 new posts a week. We heartily thank our sponsors. Last year we had funding from Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, from Equinor. We have 5 GitHub sponsors. Thank you. We have a number of anonymous corporate sponsors without whom our work would not be possible. We had over 100 contributors across all of our Plotly and Dash repos, and we're very thankful for that. And so, we look forward to another 12 months and another update next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Up next is Pravitha Iswamurthy to tell us about.
Okay, I hope you can see my screen. Awesome, thanks. So this is what Bokeh has been up to. First, if you're not familiar with Bokeh, Bokeh is a visualization library. You can not only create static plots to embed in web pages and websites, you can also create interactive plots, data applications, dashboards, and a lot of cool things. This slide shows some things that our users have developed in the past year. So what we've been working on, these are some highlights. First off, we've had 2 minor releases, 2.2 and 2.3, and some patch releases. You can read more in the Bokeh blog. In detail, though, the first main thing we've been working on is adding support for LaTeX and mathematical notation. So this is across all parts of a plot, right? Axes, labels, everything. So this has been a long requested feature, and Bokeh got funding from the CZI OSS initiative. And I would like to give a shout out to the MakePath team who is leading this effort. Next is expanding WebGL support. So Bokeh has been relying on WebGL for a long time, and Ian Thomas has worked on moving our code base to use Regel instead, so that porting is done, and now we're working on some performance improvements and on some new glyphs, rectangles, polygons, etc. Bokeh's documentation has been significantly improved in the past year. This is thanks to Timo. Timo joined us for Season of Docs last year, and he's still working with us on the LaTeX work. So if you see, we have new tutorials and guides, and our user guide has been reviewed and rearranged to be more user-friendly. What's next for Bokeh in the coming years? We want to focus on accessibility. This is not just for the Bokeh plot itself, but across our documentation, website, blog, everywhere. And that is a part of a broader initiative to improve diversity in among our contributors and users. So we are planning on some mentorship programs, and we plan to work with some experts on these. Next is support for geospatial. So we want to support geofolks to use Bokeh and Bokeh plot. So more support for georaster data and all of that. Of course, continuing improvements to our documentation. Focus will be on developer documentation for at least the next quarter. And lastly, we want to make Bokeh look nice. New themes, new look to our documentation and all that. And lastly, to stay in touch and keep learning about updates, you can follow us, follow our blog, Twitter, and we have a support discourse if you're interested in contributing. Slack is the best place. And lastly, this is the link to our documentation. And thanks.
Thank you very much. Next up is Elliot to tell us about Matplotlib.
Oh. Hi. Okay, I'm going to talk about Matplotlib now. So in our update since, let's see if we can get to the next slide. Okay, so some general news. We have our second year of the CZI grant that is helping to fund Thomas, Hannah, and myself. We are doing Google Summer of Code again this year. We have Aitik Gupta working on text and font handling, This is some really cool stuff that helps to subset our fonts into PDFs and also do fallbacks. If you're mixing English and say Chinese, you can get the proper glyphs and it won't break anymore. We have had a whole year of our discourse running and it's been pretty good. For third-party packages, last year I mentioned that we have a PyPI classifier framework matplotlib. We also have a new web page given in the link there that is used to have a summary of all of our third-party packages. And if you have a third-party package that you want to add, you should add a pull request there for that. In the last year, we had 2 major feature releases, 3.3 and 3.4, and several bug fixes. I talked about 3.3 last year, so I'm going to talk about some 3.4 features this year. So we have SubFigures, which are nestable subdivisions of your figure that act like a figure. So here in this example, we can call fig.subfigures, and then we do subplots on those subfigures. And this is really cool. I mean, it sounds like it's pretty whatever, but it's pretty cool because it means that you can split your figure in half and then pass a subfigure to a thing that requires a figure, and it will appear as a figure to it. So in this way, you can have something that has, say, color maps all joined together in the subfigures. We have a shortcut in subplot mosaic. I want to remind everybody about subplot mosaic because that was new last year in 3.3, and lots of people did not notice it. But so we have a shortcut. So if you want to do something in several lines, you can do a shortcut to just put it in with a semicolon. Another new feature is bar label, which you can basically tell it to label your bars, and we'll go look at the bar and see what the size is and put labels on it. Exactly is what it looks like. Coming up in 3.5, we have a legend label color setting, which enables you to color the text that you have based on the line color or on the marker color or on the edge color automatically. One other thing that's coming up is some color simulations so that we can simulate various color vision deficiencies. You can click a button and see what your plot looks like in grayscale or with red-green color blindness, and see that your plot actually looks reasonable, to other people. There are some miscellaneous other features that I could not make nice plots in PDF because they're actually interactive things. So we have some new backends coming out for Qt6 and GTK4 support. We have some nicer slider widgets, which look kind of terrible in this plot, but they look cool. They look better. Some improvements to how the selector widgets work, and polygon selectors that just are nice quality of life improvements that do things like that. So again, here are some links to our what's new for 3.4, what came about previously. The 3.5 links are not ready yet because we haven't tagged anything, but soon they will be. One other cool thing to note is that we have switched to the PyData Sphinx theme, which is looking pretty nice now. So future plans, we're going to have a 3.5 release sometime around September, which will be dropping support for NumPy 1.16. We'll be re-adding PyPy wheel support for all platforms, which kind of came and went, but I think we should be able to get this working everywhere now again. And again, I'll point out our blog, which has got a lot of cool stuff on it and cool usage of map. Thank you, and again,
thank you, Elliot. And up next is Julia to tell us about the state of Dask.
Hello. All right. So for Dask, the main push over the last year has really been to improve performance without impacting stability. So there has been a whole bunch of work of internal refactoring, but hopefully very little has changed in terms of what users are actually typing in. So code changes to users should be minimal. The core of this performance work has centered on how to improve tasks scheduling. So what that means in Dask, there's a task graph that's constructed client side, but the cluster where the scheduler and the workers live, so where the work actually happens, is often remote. So there's been a whole lot of work in trying to reduce what we're passing from the client to the cluster. So what that means is we have high-level graphs which are high-level representations of the lower-level task graph. And those are comprised of layers that have within them the optimizations and all the different things that the scheduler needs to know what to actually do. So we're passing the high-level graphs for Dask data frames now directly to the scheduler, rather than creating the full low-level graph on the client and then passing that. And then there's also some straight-up scheduler improvements, such as small optimizations to not call time-consuming functions as often, and then also synchronizing some parts of it. So what that means is, this is a slide from the Dask Distributed Summit workshop, is now comparing the task stream for the same process from October to May. You'll see that there's all this white space at the start of the process that's no longer there in the later releases of Dask. So there's the graph generation and all this startup work is now speeded up, trimmed out, and the workers are able to get their work faster and do their work faster. The other big performance improvement that's happened very recently is better memory handling. So that means better memory tracking and prioritizing scheduling neighboring tasks on the same worker. So you get fewer killed workers, and this is an image of a bad workflow, or a workflow that was performing poorly before. You can see there's a lot of white space where nothing's happening, and a lot of red space where there's serialization and data transfer. This thing took 43 minutes, and now there's a lot less white space, takes 3 minutes, and it's just a much more efficient way to handle the work. Some other enhancements are this task annotations, which allows you to annotate tasks with specific flags that tell the scheduler how to handle them, so like what order to do them in or retries. And then also there's a big push for visualization improvements. So this is better HTML wrappers, more Dask diagnostic plots. So this is an example of the new high-level graph wrapper. It is a more consistent feel, and then it also contains a whole bunch of information that's really useful. And here's the client wrapper. You can really nestle down and get a whole ton of information from these things now. The last thing I wanted to mention is the Dask Distributed Summit, which we held in May. It was 3 days, more than 500 attendees. It was really great to see the engagement that we got on this. It was the first really big Dask conference. The recordings are all up right now on the Dask YouTube channel. I'll post these slides in the chat. And there were just a bunch of workshops that were really fun to see. And the last thing is, if you use Dask, please take the survey. It will be closing shortly if you need a little fire. But yeah, it'd be great to hear what you want to see next, what you want us to be focusing on. Thanks.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Pamphil Roy telling us about SciPy.
Hi, can you show the video? My internet is very bad. Hi everyone, I'm Pamphil Roy, one of the many maintainers of SciPy. We had 2 major releases this year, 1.6 in December 2020 and the current release 1.7 since June 2021. These bring tons of new features and bug fixes. Before giving you more details, some things about the organization. We're happy to count Tideleaf as our largest source of donation with over $2,500 per month for almost 2 years. We're also grateful to the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative and NumFocus for the grants. As for the community, we started again to have meetups, so join us. So what's new? A new submodel for Quasi-Monte Carlo was added in the stats model. It allows you to sample quasi-random sequences with good uniform properties. The documentation design was updated to use the same PyData Sphinx theme as NumPy and other ecosystem libraries. We now vendor and leverage the Boost C++ library to enable numerous improvements for long-standing weaknesses in stats. Stats has a lot of new distributions, new or overall hypothesis tests, a new function for bootstrapping, a class that enables fast random varied sampling and percentile point function evaluation, and many other enhancements. CITIS and PITIS distance evaluations are faster for several metrics, especially weighted cases, thanks to a rewrite to a new C++ backend framework. A new class for radial basis function interpolation, RBF interpolator, was added to address issues with the RBF class. For the next releases, we are going to focus on a few things. We have two Google Summer of Code 2021 projects. One seeks to integrate the library Uniron into the stats module, and the other project's goal is to convert some functions to Python. We started to use Python alongside with Cython starting from this release. We're still in the evaluation phase, but we want to enable it by default with the next release. Propack wrapper are also coming under a SDG grant from NumFocus. And we are starting to work on moving from distutil to Meson as the build system for SciPy. This will drastically reduce the build time. Within this project, we're starting to use SciPy project funds from Tidelift and donations for structural improvement to SciPy. One final word, help is always welcome. SciPy is a mature library. Still, there are possibilities to contribute for everyone. Thank you to all our contributors for giving their free time towards building such a great library and community. Now, go leave a star, fork the project, and update. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker of the day is Chizing Chung, who will tell us about PyPI.
Hello everyone, this is Ziping from the PyPA, and I'm going to talk about what we've been doing on Python packaging and what we're planning to work on. The Python Packaging Authority, or PyPA, is a bunch of contributors that maintain projects implementing Python packaging related things and sometimes propose PEPs about packaging to CPython core developers. We do a lot of things on Python packaging, but I'm going to focus on 3 topics here. Last year, we secured funds for TUF implementation. This work is contracted and will not be carried out by PyPA members, but we're extremely happy to see it happen. We plan to also build on TUF to enhance packaging security. pip integrated a new dependency resolver last year and used it to provide better reproducibility. The file pyproject.toml will describe user intent, and the log file makes future installations understand what the intent meant when it's written. We're about half the way there, so keep an eye on that. There are 2 parts about performance: resolve dependencies faster and install them faster. pep658 speeds up resolution by exposing metadata directly, so the resolver needs to download less data. pep656 affects Alpine Linux most, which is pretty common for containers, so basically this means you'll be able to build and deploy containers faster. PyPA is a conversation anyone can join, and I sincerely hope everyone can join when they can. Python packaging still has a lot to be desired, and we do feel you when a rough edge comes up. We're all in this together. Let's make things better. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. And so that brings us to the end of the plenary session for SciPy 2021. I just want to thank all of our speakers from both days again, and release you all to break a little bit early. Thank you for attending.